Hey everyone, welcome to SimCron. I'm here at Simwood HQ, which some of you may recognise in the background, and from secret locations in Birmingham in the US, we've got Mr. Charles Chance and Mr. Jared Smith. Before I introduce them, I just want to say a little bit about next week. We have a very special guest in the form of Sandro Gauci. For those of you that don't know him, Sandro wrote Sit Vicious, and it's probably fair to say it changed his life. It was intended as a security tool because he's a security analyst. He's going to be joining us to tell us that story and run through with us some live demos of current threats, current vulnerabilities. So tune in for that, or as my daughter tells me I have to say, you have to click the red button down below to subscribe. So moving on with this week, two gentlemen that frankly have changed my life in the last year. Charles Chance, our CTO, joined us almost a year to the day, isn't it, Charles?
Just over, yeah,
with
yeah,
the
2 days over.
The acquisition of SipCentric, and has made a huge difference to not only what we do but how we do it. And similarly, Jared Smith joined us 3 months ago. Jared,
3 months ago,
as SVP of product, based out in the US, and again taking more ownership of how we bring things to market, how we do things beyond just the technical building of products, has made a huge difference. Jared, for those of you that don't know him, which frankly can't be many of you, is ex-Sangoma, head of the Asterisk project. Is that your proper title, Jared?
I was VP of Open Source Development.
There we go. And prior to that, you were at Red Hat and Capital One.
Capital One, yep.
So very big fish in our little pond. So we're very glad to have you. So before we get into the usual SimCron, or what we hope will be the usual SimCron next time, we thought we'd cut our teeth with a bit of an update on what's been going on during the pandemic. We've been pretty busy, I think it's fair to say. So we've got Jared and Charles on to give us a little update on, firstly, what has happened, and secondly, what is in progress and going to happen over the next few months. So dealing with the first one, I'm going to pick on you, Charles. We put out a blog post a couple of weeks ago now, I think, on our move to Kubernetes and embracing the cloud. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that journey and the motivations?
Sure. I mean, the motivations behind it are multifaceted, but the biggest and most important one from my perspective is to make managing and scaling all of the sort of individual microservices and components that make up both the Simwood Wholesale stack and now the SipCentric stack, much more sort of centrally manageable, easy to scale on demand, and to optimize the resource that we have, rather than having to over provision, actually be able to expand the resource when it's needed, and essentially with global scale, actually being able to follow the sun almost. So that was the motivation behind it. Kubernetes and why we chose Kubernetes for that is because we can run it on net, but equally we can run it on any number of sort of commodity cloud providers. And standardize the way in which we do that, rather than using each cloud provider's own platform or own method of container deployment. Sorry, Kubernetes is a standard. So we chose Kubernetes, and that's kind of those are the underlying reasons. We've started with AWS as a cloud provider of choice, and the direction we're taking is to free up some of our internal compute, some of our internal resource, to move things internally to Kubernetes, and ultimately then link the clusters together to scale in and out of, or to scale into and out of the cloud where needs must, or where needs, but with an on-net centric approach first, and utilize cloud where it makes sense to.
So where we are today is we've got media, most signaling still on net as far as actual calls are concerned, but some of the ancillary services like call routing was one of the first ones you moved over, wasn't it?
Correct, that's it. So yes, dynamic scaling works really, really well. In fact, it's the perfect use case for it, where you're looking at back end microservices, things which are completely stateless, things which for the most part operate over HTTP requests between themselves. So they're all sort of individual APIs, and they scale up and down really well. So that was the first port of call, the obvious choice of things to move. Equally, from a media perspective, where most of the traffic is currently, it made sense to keep the proxies and the media servers as close to that as possible, and that's on net as it is currently. That's the next step for us is to now to start to look at how we scale those into the cloud, and into other regions, joining the two together to help us continue on the global the global venture, and the global scaling of the platform.
And have you found call routing running on AWS, on Kubernetes versus being on net?
Firstly, we have far greater response times now to how we did before, because we can auto scale based on the real time metrics. So where before we needed to maintain a level or a number of instances running, and that sometimes was too much. Other times it could be too little. We can now react instantly, and that's an automatic thing. The number of instances are throughout the day increasing and decreasing according to a number of factors, number of metrics, including average response time, but also number of requests per second, other things related to what kind of requests they are, will dictate how the number of instances that are available to service those requests scale up and down. And it's fantastic. It's made such a big difference to how we're utilizing call routing and the underlying resource.
And I think that's one of the key takeaways for me with the Kubernetes deployment. It's been a good few years since I talked about us moving to containerization, and I said then we're not touching orchestration. We'll leave that until later.
Yeah.
Now is later, but we're really seeing the benefit of the orchestration with the containerization, and call routing is a great poster child for that from my perspective. But I know it took you guys a little bit of time and a fair bit of tuning to work out what metrics would cause things to scale, didn't it?
It did. We tested it extensively. We load tested it, or stress tested it, in order to as closely as possible reproduce real world kind of traffic and requests, because not every request is the same. So it's not just a case of throwing 1,000 of the same curl request at the API endpoint, in a second or in 60 seconds. We actually log call routing requests and responses, and we were able to take those logs and replay them to essentially mock up a period of time of real calls or real requests, which was great. But we thought that was really important to get to a point where we knew we were scaling in a way that was suitable and realistic to call flows.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And We actually had a question from one of our Slack community members who's also a customer that they read the blog post on this, and they're embarking on a similar journey themselves, and they posed the question: we're currently weighing up EKS versus ECS and deciding which components of our stack to containerize. They have FreeSwitch and Kama-Elio, very similar to us. So they'd be interested to hear architectural decisions you made and any pitfalls to avoid.
Yeah, that's a good question, and one that we actually had to consider and make a decision on ourselves. You know, ECS is attractive when you first start looking at it because the learning curve is shallower. There's certainly less learning to do when you consider ECS. Is very similar to sort of vanilla Docker.
So ECS, for sort of my numpty benefit, that's
it's Elastic Container Service. Correct.
So they deal with all the Kubernetes, the sort of the scaling stuff behind the scenes. You're just deploying containers on a familiar.
That's right. And deploying is follows a very sort of familiar Docker Compose type of a syntax for your deployment files, and it's a really quick win. It's a really great way to get started with cloud platform and to test things like auto scaling. The trouble is ECS is AWS specific, and then we come back to this original goal, which was to have something or a stack and an orchestration method that was cloud agnostic, something which didn't depend on AWS or didn't depend on Azure or Google Cloud, something that we could run on net too. So I think from an architectural point of view, if we ignore the other sort of powerful features of Kubernetes to begin with, the fact that it is a standard platform that can be run anywhere is probably one of the biggest reasons that I would suggest just taking the extra time to learn to use Kubernetes rather than Amazon's ECS. But then in terms of features and maturity, there are sort of so many plugins and whether that's relating to storage volumes, persistent volumes, and or whether it's related to orchestration, to deployment, to scaling, metrics. It's pretty awesome in how the sort of metrics are exposed internally and across the entire cluster. There are so many reasons that just make Kubernetes the obvious choice between the two.
And where does EKS fit in? So that's Elastic Kubernetes Service.
Kubernetes Service. That's right. So, but it is just it's standard Kubernetes. There's no sort of customization in any way which prohibits then moving what you built on EKS to Google's own version of installation of Kubernetes or an on-net installation of Kubernetes.
You just don't have to manage the Kubernetes piece.
You just don't have to manage the Kubernetes piece. You can click. You can deploy a cluster. It then interfaces with EC2 to spin up the instances. It will install the core components of the Kubernetes cluster onto those instances. But then what you're left with is a Kubernetes cluster just as you would have on net.
Okay, so the way we've got, if I understand it right, is EC2 hosts with Kubernetes installed on top, which will translate into physical hosts with Kubernetes installed on top, and then everything else above that is consistent wherever it's deployed. Exactly. So the auto scaling and the like that we've used is built into Kubernetes.
Correct. With ECS, I mean, if we're going back to ECS again, the auto scaling isn't strictly self-contained within it. So you have to link things like CloudWatch or the SNS messaging to be able to sort of get your monitoring, your statistics, your metrics, trigger something which and it becomes quite complicated, but also the further you go, the more you actually get locked into AWS's particular particular solutions and products, and then it becomes very difficult to move away, which is obviously good for them. But
I was going to say that's the business model, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, if I can jump in here for just a second, I think it's a useful analogy. Who of us that owns a car would want to only be able to have the oil changed by the dealership where we bought the vehicle? And so I think one of the nice things about using, vanilla Kubernetes versus, you say, EKS is that we're not locked into one particular vendor. If we decide that we want to use a different public cloud provider or a different hybrid strategy, that we're not locked into one particular vendor.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I put a blog post out about this change, and I was almost apologetic at the start, because I knew some people would consider that we'd changed direction because I'm regarded as being anti-cloud. And I'm not actually anti-cloud. I'm anti-cloud as a religious obsession. The cloud isn't perfect, but neither is doing everything on net. You actually want a little bit of for the tool for the job, as it were. And that feels like the transition we've gone through here. We're getting the best of the cloud, and we're getting the best of cloud technology on net, which is how I used to characterize it when I was talking about our journey to containerization. So that's really exciting, and there's more to come there, isn't there?
Oh, lots more. Yeah, I mean, there's there are new services that we're migrating every day. It's enabled us to free up some of the older or sort of what we probably consider now more legacy services, which don't really take part in they don't take part in the production traffic control or call control, but they are nevertheless there as back end sort of management and monitoring.
Do you mean all the stuff I wrote?
All the stuff. I was trying to be more diplomatic than that, but
technical debt.
But that technical debt, yes. So internal technical debt, which is great, because that's been a long time coming, and something which I certainly know you've been very keen to sort of see the back of, despite you writing it. It was one thing which was perhaps left behind, because it was not. It was not a critical function of the stack, so therefore just got forgotten about. But of course, what that means is what it's sat there. It's consuming energy. It's tying up old server resource, which just is unnecessary to be there from our own point of view.
Yeah.
So lots of things moving daily, and we'll continue to do so. There's a lot to do.
That's fantastic, and of course, we can't forget that we're quite SIP-centric last October, separate network, separate platform.
Yeah.
Although you've taken the mantle of group CTO, and you've been fairly focused on the wholesale side of things, you've been very busy on Simwood Partner as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, not just least taking a similar approach with Kubernetes and utilizing the sort of cloud resource where it makes sense to. There's been lots of other work going on Partner or on the SIP-centric platform in terms of new features, new functionality, which I'm sure we can probably demonstrate some for you here right now if that's of interest.
That'd be amazing.
So, kind of from a product perspective, we've spent a lot of time trying to figure out what we want to add as far as new features to the SIP-centric platform. And one of the first new features we wanted to add was kind of whisper Barge capability. So maybe you're in a call center type environment, and you're a supervisor, and you want to be able to help out an agent who's on the phone with a customer. Maybe you want to whisper something in their ear that they can hear but the customer can't hear, kind of a whisper capability. Or maybe you want to actually join in the call and be able to talk to both the customer and the agent to help out there. And so that's one of the great new features we've added to the platform, is that whisper Barge capability to our call queues. Charles, that
supports three modes, doesn't it? One is sort of listen. By default, you're just listening only to the agent, so it's great for sort of just monitoring and observing, especially with trainees. There's the next option, with just a key press while you're listening, is just to whisper into that agent's ear, so to provide some advice, or into how to take the call, or maybe just provide some feedback, but without the other party hearing. And then the third option is a full-on barge, so literally sort of barging into both sides of the call, and being for the other party to be able to hear you, and essentially it's the start of a conference call, a three-way conference call then at that point.
Excellent. And that's not some shiny feature that you dreamt up. That was something partners were actually asking for, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And and a surprisingly high number of partners, considering we SipCentric as a platform has been it is what I consider to be quite mature. The features that the feature requests that we're seeing now are great, in terms of extending that and enhancing the platform even further. But that one particularly was in high demand. Yeah.
Excellent. And what else have you been up to on the partner platform?
So another thing that we've recently been working on is kind of the branding interface. As it is today with the partner platform, you can go in and define kind of your logo, your colors, those sorts of things, but it's somewhat of a manual process for us to go in and configure that for you. And so we wanted to make that more of a self-service type thing. So Charles and I are going to do a little demo here to kind of show you what that looks like from the interface, and then show that's actually going to come through, and we'll actually show it off on the mobile communicator app.
We haven't talked about mobile communicator yet, so before you do your demo, let's touch on that. So
Okay.
that's had lots of attention, hasn't it?
Definitely. Obviously, that's one of the most requested features from our partners. They want a mobile endpoint that they can run on their cell phones that ties right into the partner platform, just like a desk phone or just like the web communicator would. And
that's out in beta now. I know I've been using it for a good while, but how far away are we from seeing that in app stores?
We're expecting to see that in the iOS app store here in the next 2 weeks, and then Android will probably be roughly a month behind that.
Brilliant. Sorry, I hijacked your demo, so away you go.
Sounds good.
Not at all. It might be a good idea just to bring that up on screen, Jared. With its current branding.
Yep.
Great. Now we demoed this at SimCon back in March, didn't we? It hasn't fundamentally changed since then, has it?
No, not massively. Yeah, not massively. I mean, in terms of its functionality, no. And we've focused on adding anything that was missing at the time of the demo. DTMF being one of the things that was remaining, and contact integration with local contacts. But otherwise, the functionality hasn't changed there. What's really sort of impressive now is how, once we deploy this into the app stores, partners can immediately start giving this to their customers to use. And the reason they can do that is because it is dynamically rebrandable, and it takes its cues from their other deployed apps, the portal, the manager, as we call it, and analytics and the web communicator, so that they end up with a state of self-branded apps. So let's demonstrate. If I take control here, can we all see this? So this is the branding interface. It's we just need to restyle a couple of things here before we make it live. But this equally is going to be available for partners to use by the time Communicator is available in the app stores. And this is the iOS release, obviously, which is the sooner of the two. So the beauty of the branding interface is that where historically all of the new partner builds were a manual process, and then any changes to that, more importantly, had to go through the same manual process. Now partners can log in and they can make changes themselves on the fly and get a preview here of how each of their apps is going to look with the branding applied. So if I just to demonstrate here, if I change, I don't know, the secondary color, which happens to be the background color on the mobile app that you've just seen, and I change it to a nice, I don't know, a nice purple. Purple color. There we go, and see the effect of that here. And then save those changes and publish. Okay, so that's published, and we don't need to wait long, because if Jared can, if I stop sharing now and we switch back to Jared's view of the mobile app. Okay. Ooh. And there we have a nice purple branded soft phone, as opposed to the blue that was there before. Now I'm sure that that wasn't the greatest of examples, but what it does is serve to demonstrate that the branding in the app is dynamically fetched and controlled by the partner.
Yeah, and that's a great feature. And the premise that we have, of course, neglected here is that Simwood Partner is completely white labeled to the partners.
Yes.
Partners branding that carries across all of the properties with it. So presumably the deployment plan for this is there'll be a generic app that they download, and
absolutely
those are associated with them. Do you want to
absolutely. So there are actually two deployment models. The first one being the default, which is a sort of generically named app, which all partners can use, and is included as part of the platform and the service and the offering. They can direct their customers to it, and of course, when the customers first install the app, it's sort of a very generic brand. When they see the login screen, as soon as they log in, that app then springs to life as being that partner's own app, because it grabs their colors, it grabs their logo, fonts, even, you know, everything is customizable there, not just the background color as a demonstrated there, but everything. So they can really make it their own, with no sort of with no development costs and no outlay, because it's there. The second option is slightly more advanced and requires some upfront work from us. But what we can do is we can package all of their branding, their logo, and everything else into their own build, into their own binary, and publish that to the App Store under their own name. Of course, then they can choose the app name and logo as it appears in the store, and all of the other metadata that goes alongside it. You know, so it's a slightly more advanced model, but that is an option for those that particularly want to go that way.
Now, we've talked about the architecture of the app before. I know I talked about it a little bit this year and at SimCon the year before. Yeah. That's one of the things I'm most excited about, because it's completely different to your generic, VoIP app.
Yeah.
Do you want to do a little run through on that?
Sure. I mean, there's I could go on forever, but one of the biggest and fundamental differences between it and other soft phone apps out there is that it uses WebRTC under the hood. But both Android and iOS have had for some time now WebRTC support built into the OS. And as we already had Web Communicator running in a browser, and we have all of the backend stuff, namely VoxApp Core as it exists today, it seems silly not to make use of that, and it means that the app itself is very lightweight. It's not running any kind of audio processing or huge proprietary SIP stacks. It's all WebSocket. We're sending SIP messages over that WebSocket, and the media is WebRTC and native to the operating system. So it's really lightweight, which means it works quickly, and the audio quality is superior.
And if I can jump in here for just a second, some of the other advantages of WebRTC means that we don't have as many problems with NAT traversal and carrier grade NAT and some of those sorts of things that continue to plague other soft phone apps.
Yeah.
And you've got security baked in, so native encryption or rather mandatory encryption. Opus codec, so hopefully a bit more adaptive bit rate than not a bit more adaptive bit rate, which you wouldn't have with a conventional SIP phone or soft phone rather, and it doesn't chew your battery up because it's using the WebSockets rather than re-read every couple of minutes.
That's right, and of course, that's crucial. That's absolutely critical, that the app doesn't need to be permanently connected. It is woken up in the event of an incoming call by a push notification from us, and in that, in the interim period, it's not using any battery at all.
Yeah, that's fantastic. See that in the stores.
Yeah, look out for it.
There's one other thing you've been working on as well, that's worth mentioning, and that's hybrid.
Indeed. Another exciting and quite very unique to my knowledge proposition.
Yeah.
The underlying principle between hybrid is for those sort of customers looking for scale and looking to sort of capitalize on wholesale commercials that they may have or be used to, but not have to spend the time and effort and resource in deploying their own platform. We can offer the best of both worlds, because we have the platform, we have it hosted, but it now has the capability of plugging it in your own wholesale call termination, numbering, whether that's Simwood numbering or whether that's your own sort of hosted ranges, into it, so that it essentially marries the two accounts together and gives you the freedom and the benefit of the wholesale commercials and being able to package your own minutes and everything else that goes with it, whilst making use of a platform which is constantly evolving, now has a mobile app and all the other new features that we're sort of bundling in all the time. So it's great. But Jared, is there anything you need to add that I've forgotten?
I wish we had something that was really great to demo this and on that side of things. For all intents and purposes, from the outside world, it looks just like a wholesale account and a partner account that happen to be kind of welded together to work all together. So there's no great thing that we can show off to the demo, but it really is the best of both worlds. You get all the great features of the wholesale side, all the great features of the platform side, and gives you the scalability and the flexibility. And you may say, hey, I have some customers that want to use the partner platform. I have others that just want SIP trunks and minutes and numbers, and so you can kind of mix and match those as your business case warrants.
So just to look at some use cases with that. So if we've got an existing wholesale customer that is running their own platform on, say, Asterisk, FreeSwitch, 3CX, they want to leverage some of the functionality that's available in the partner platform. They can use hybrid and maintain their existing estate on their wholesale account, but also have customers on the partner platform.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. As part of the joining of the two accounts, one of the parameters that's specified is a trunk. It's the trunk to use on the wholesale account. So that can be an entirely separate and dedicated trunk just for the hybrid platform. So any existing trunks and any other existing configuration there is untouched. Then any calls out of the SimCentric platform will traverse the trunk that's being set up accordingly.
Brilliant.
And of course, when a customer is in the platform and is choosing new numbers, those numbers are pulled from the same numbering resource. So if it's a hosted range or whether it's a Simwood range, as that partner would have on their wholesale account through the Simwood portal.
Brilliant. And of course, going the other way, you could have a partner that's found scale with the hosted platform and with trunks, and doesn't want to resell bundles anymore. They want to be in a position to control their own bundles.
Yeah.
Of course, they've got the billing and the ability to assemble bundles on the partner platform anyway, but they can plug that into their wholesale termination and benefit from wholesale economics, right, behind the scenes.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah. So, and I know, Fraser was telling me we were seeing sort of massive interest in this from people. So it's quite an exciting, and as you said at the start, Charles, very unique in the marketplace.
Yeah, indeed.
So yeah, fantastic job. Should we talk about roadmap?
Let's do.
Yeah.
Do you want to take that one away, Jared?
Sure. So I think there's several things coming up on the upcoming product roadmap, and those of you who attended SimCon back in February have heard of some of these things, but we want to put some more definitive dates on a few of these anyway.
I think it was March, wasn't it?
Was that
Didn't
March?
we sneak it in just before this virus got hold of everyone?
I can't remember. It was the end of February, beginning of March, but that was the last business trip I took. That much I remember. I snuck over to the UK for SimCon because I didn't want to miss it.
And you didn't work with us then, did you?
No, I didn't.
Time flies.
Indeed. So yeah, things coming up on the product roadmap. Obviously, we've talked a little bit about the mobile communicator. Like I specified earlier, sometime in the next couple of weeks, we should have that out on iOS. Android to follow roughly a month behind that. One of the other products that we kind of demoed at SimCon earlier this year a little bit, but haven't talked much about so far is residential products. So we're continuing to work on that. We're hoping to have that ready for our partners before the end of the year. Charles, do you want to talk just a brief minute about the residential platform, just for those who might not be familiar with it or might not have got the talk at SimCon?
Sure. Well, the intention behind the residential platform, I say platform because it's actually it's actually built on top of the existing platform, because why reinvent the wheel with the back end when we already have a very solid, scalable infrastructure built for carrying calls. What differs between a residential product and a business product is obviously in the features exposed to the end users. So the residential platform or product is just that. It's a stripped back version of the existing platform, which is tailored and presented in a way that makes sense for home users, and it's ideal for anyone that's rolling out an AltNet type of a proposition, or a Wi-Fi type proposition, or for anyone that's bundling voice in with other services to home users in any way, over any transport. But yeah, it's but most importantly, it will come with the app functionality that partners are going to enjoy with the hosted PBX version of the platform, so that home users no longer have the same restrictions of a landline. They're taking their number with them, so it's the term landline is obviously going to be changing massively, but this is designed to fill that need and to meet that need.
Yeah, so multiple numbers on an installation and multiple apps behind each of those numbers, and all of the flexibility that you might expect with that, which is hugely exciting. And the market has changed quite a bit for this. I think since we first envisaged it, we were originally thinking, AltNets and other people that were deploying, fiber to the premises. But BT seem to have changed their position quite a bit. So according to the Ofcom wholesale voice market review, WLR, which is what most resellers tend to sell if they're offering landlines, is been deprecated, won't be a product after 2025. Its successor, fiber voice access, which we talked about when we did the talk back in March at SimCon, that's been I forget what the BT term for it is, stop sold. They're basically, they're not offering it anymore. So as things stand today, BT doesn't have a wholesale residential voice proposition. Now, I find it hard to believe that will remain the position, although Ofcom seem to have bought into that in the wholesale voice markets review. But I have no doubt there'll be a solution to that problem magically appear in maybe 12, 18 months' time. But as things stand, it's an unserved need, and we've got again lots of interest in this. This is the next big one to get out the door, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
And you did give us a timescale for that, Jared, I think.
Yes, before the end of the year.
Okay. He said it. He's committed to it.
Yep. We're committed to having it done by the end of the year.
Fabulous. And what else is going on?
We've got some other things going on in the background. We're continuing to work on integration with the partner platform and Microsoft Teams. We don't yet have a definitive timescale for that yet, but it continues to be worked on, and we'll have more to announce about that.
That's kind of, we did the proof of concept with that very much as a last minute thing ahead of SimCon back in March, didn't we?
We did.
And there's some interest in this, but every man and his dog seems to be announcing Teams integration. So I think it's fair to say it's not been top of our list until now, has it?
All right, it's certainly something we're working on, but not hasn't been top of our list. And there's also it's a somewhat changing landscape. Microsoft has kind of changed the rules about who they're letting partner on the Teams platform, and new SBCs being certified for Teams and those sorts of things. And so the landscape has changed a bit, but it's something we continue to work on and want to have an answer for our customers. Obviously, another thing that we've been working heavily on is in the partner platform rollout in the U.S., and I think Charles is probably in the best position to give us a little update on this.
Indeed. So I mean, this is huge from a SIP-centric platform point of view. We're now at a stage where we have a complete stack of necessary components up and running over there and carrying our test calls. What we're moving on to now is sort of making some small changes in the user interface to make it more applicable to US customers. For example, the default numbering pool that's used and currencies and those sorts of things. But all of that is just about ready to go, and I'm going to be really excited to see the first US customers making use of the platform. That ultimately has come a long way over the years, and it's nice to see now being used to its fullest.
Yeah, so we ought to get Tom on actually to give us a bit of an update on the US, but
yeah.
We've been trading over there in a wholesale capacity for a couple of years now. We got our first CLEC in 2017, I think, maybe 2018. That's really gathered pace over the last 12 months, and I think the last count we were at about 24 licensed CLECs, or 24 states we were licensed in over there, with some very, very big ones crazily close, like California, which I learned has a GDP greater than the whole of the UK, just on its own. So there's really exciting things happening there at wholesale. But what this enables us to do is take Simwood Partner to the US. It takes on a slightly different form, doesn't it? Because white label is less of a thing over there, but possible with the platform. And service a whole new level of customer.
indeed. I mean, agents tend to be the thing over there, more so than white labeling. But essentially, the platform itself is is what's on offer, and it's very capable. It was very UK centric originally, and now what we've been doing is making the changes behind the scenes to open it up to that wider audience, whether it is direct to end users, sold through agents, or indeed through white label partners.
Yeah. Now, of course, we've been a bit naughty. Both you and I have described it as over there. Which from a UK perspective, it is. But of course, yeah, Jan there, and that was one of the many reasons for him joining us. And we've got Tom and Kathy and other people over there. So we're not a UK company that's running this from afar. We're a proper proper US operator as well now, which is a massive change.
It's certainly a bit of a change, but it's certainly a welcome one. And if I can just jump in here for a minute, I want to talk. I know, Simon, you mentioned briefly about some of the things going on the wholesale side of things. I think that we'd be remiss if we didn't cover some of the other kind of things on the roadmap from the wholesale perspective as well. You talked about being a CLEC in roughly 24 states and more coming along the way. But we've also been working on things like stir shake and support. Obviously, for anybody who's involved in voice over IP in the U.S., that's a big looming thing with the FCC and their mandate to use stir shake, and for both the traceability aspects and to try to reduce the unwanted calls on the phone network here in the U.S. And so that's something we've been working with our switches and with some of the partners that we use here in the U.S. to make sure that we've got that up and running. We've also been working on traffic diversity to increase traffic diversity here in the UK, or excuse me, here in the US for what we've been doing on the wholesale platform.
How do you mean traffic diversity?
Oh, making sure that we've got a number of different routes through different carriers. So if one
I see. Okay, problem, yeah. Okay.
That we can proactively route around problems rather than just saying, oh, that upstream carrier is having a problem. We're kind of stuck.
Yeah, I know that the sort of the supply base over there has grown massively, hasn't it, over the last six months or so?
It really has.
Yeah.
So that gives us, like I said, the ability to route around issues. It also gives us some, the ability to bring prices down as well, which is never a bad thing.
But that's a function of volume, of course. It's not just
it's not just diversity, but it's
$3 with 20 different carriers. It just doesn't work, does it?
Yep.
So we're very fortunate to have a good base of wholesale business over there already. And did you mention the other changes for the US, Charles, specifically the Stripe integration?
No, I didn't, but I'm very happy to. I mean, obviously, with the deployment of the platform in the US, with a new set of customers, and an entirely unique brand and proposition, there needs to be a method to collect payments from those customers. So another thing that we're adding is Stripe integration for that. Now, what that means, of course, is that in addition to allowing us to collect payments from US customers, it also means that any existing partners, whether in the US or the UK, are able to make use of that integration themselves to collect payments from their customers. So double whammy there with a new addition, which is going to benefit the platform and our customers in many ways.
So I think it's important to. Sorry. I was just going to say it's important to note that while those of you in the UK might be used to direct debit and that sort of thing and direct debit mandates with your bank being kind of standard there in the UK, but that's just not heard of here in the US for the most part. Most people pay with a card, and whether it's prepay or postpay, they pay with a credit card. Every once in a while, they'll still cut paper checks here. So. Having that Stripe integration will be a huge benefit.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, Charles, about the payment from customers in the US is a given, but you mentioned partners being able to use it for
Yes.
debiting their own customers. Where's that on the roadmap, or is that done?
That's part of it. So as soon as the Stripe integration is complete, it's open and available to partners to use. They obviously would configure it to integrate with their own Stripe accounts rather than ours. But ultimately, it's the same integration, the same functionality. So it will be exposed to them in the partner portal as a tab, as an additional tab under their branding and preferences pane.
Fantastic.
They would, they'd authenticate it against their Stripe account, and they're away. And their customers can then log in and add card details and payments collected from those cards.
Fantastic. So we're not only doing the billing, but we can also take the payments as well,
Exactly.
in their name, on their account, deposited into their bank account.
Into their bank account, yes.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. All right, guys. I think that brings us about to the end of the list, doesn't it? Or have I missed anything exciting?
No, I think that covers most of the highlights anyway.
Okay. Well, thank you both very much for that, and for everyone watching. I hope that was everyone watching, both of you. I hope that was useful. Don't forget to click the red button and make sure you join us next time for Sandro Gauci. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon.